The last thing that we're going to do today, but a very important piece to establish some closure to all of this, is to look back on what the course objectives for this course were, and to see and evaluate whether or not those were fulfilled for you. Both Misha here and those of you out there now who have taken the course, gone through it all, had time to digest the contents a bit. And it'll also, I hope, be a good review for you and go, oh wow, there was a lot there. And hopefully you'll be very happy with what you've learned and how you've grown in the process. So Misha, we're going to just go back down memory lane and talk about the course objectives. When we first began, back in episode 1, our mission was to develop a sound healing vocabulary. And to do that, we used Sandra's invention, the sound game. Remember that?
I do.
And we had those little boxes out, and we, filled them up with all of these sounds from the environment, and we did some spontaneous work with that. So we used that sound box, and then hopefully helped you realize that that's a good way to introduce sound healing to your students, your very beginning students. We also then moved on to adding an issues box to our sounds and began to examine, well, why do people come for healing? What are their reasons? And they are both physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. We talked about all of those aspects, but we focused on, without really being able to, fine point, divide them up, we focused on physical issues and emotional ones. And one of the first things you learn to do in those little mini sound healings that you all completed 5 of and wrote up, remember? You had to work on a body part and do a mini sound healing on that with write-ups. And then you had to do a simple pain release, all right? Getting at a little bit more of the emotional reasons for healing. From that, we expanded quite a bit on the emotional part of sound healing because that is key to sound healing. It really focuses on the emotional field. It triggers the emotional field. And to do that, we use the vehicle of an emotionally loaded song. Remember Misha going with her little straw hat? I'm leaving! That was such a great skit. I'll never forget that. And from the emotional release using song, we then had some work with Power Animal and the journeying process, which was another way for you to learn to be a leader using your voice, guiding people through guided imagery. All right. So we worked with not only finding and discovering your power animal to help you with a specific issue in your life, but to shift into that power animal. Remember gorilla?
I remember gorilla.
And the whole point of gorilla was to make space, right? And to really help you claim your space for yourself. Yeah. So I think that part of the objectives did sink in for you. It was great work. I remember that. So then from the power animal, we were actually going to work with more animal sounds in the chakras and baby sounds and so forth. There was not really time in this course to go into depth with those. However, I did include those exercises in your workbook. So at a later date you may want to, or maybe you already have taken an opportunity to learn more about using those exercises. So those were kind of on hold, but we did then work with Sacred Name. And that focus was on the vowel sounds, learning some ritual. Remember, we talked about not only was it important to use sound, but to accompany it with movement so that it would integrate into the body. So you learned the sounds for the directions, you learn how to bring in the directions, call them in, And then we actually performed a sacred name ritual, and we had the young ladies, Hannah, Anna, Amanda, come and help us, which they were such great sports.
They're so fun.
Yeah, and that was so much fun to do, because I can remember when I first started, I was really afraid of ritual. I just felt it was like a really formalized process. I didn't know how to do it, blah, blah. And hopefully the objective of this course was to give you some background, but then to let you realize that it's not hard. You just do it what's in the way that's comfortable and natural for you, and bring what things, power out objects and animals and things into it that, you know, feel good to you. So we moved then from sacred name on to creating chakra stories, which we hopefully found out story can be healing. Just to be listened to, the sound of your voice, or actually producing a story that is a healing story, in that there's an issue involved, a struggle that goes on, and an outcome that can be positive. And then sounded into the body to again embed that, right? And those chakra stories, I mean, those guys, all of us, wow, I just was really happy with those segments. I mean, there's a book right there. So the chakra stories took up quite a bit of time, but again, I felt like story is such a big part of this. Your own personal stories, how your body has a story to tell, and how that story then is shed so that you realize you're not your story. You're not who you think you are, or say you are, or what you do. But you move on in terms of learning from that story and evolving in your own consciousness. All right. And then from the chakra stories, we moved most recently into the inner dialogue work and the discovering of your nurturing voice, which was
Tremendous.
really interesting and challenging for everyone concerned. And hopefully you guys out there really took that one to heart. And last but not least, we finished up then with the 3 meditations, the Tibetan, the seed sounds, and Kavi's stress buster, all of which I hope you actually perform, teach someone, get involved, and do those write-ups, because if you do them and write them up, again,
They sit with you.
Yeah, they stick with you. So those were the objectives for the course, and it's up to you now to decide whether or not those objectives were met.